So these are the parts to make the mine shaft itself. These parts form the inner section of the mine shaft. You have the sides, you have the lower section, and then you have the upper section. The upper section is done in two parts along the main spine, just in case you want to have the top be removable to try to put in lighting effects or something like that. And then here is the ornamental wrapping that goes around it after it's done. So this goes together in a pretty straightforward manner. Let's get to it. Alright, so these sections that have the metal deck pattern on them, they are the bottom pieces and they will fit into these slots. These are rail sections and it's probably just as easy to glue them on to start with. So let's do that. They just fit right in between these rails, in between these lines, marking where the rails are supposed to be. And then they each have another section of lines on them for where the upper part of the rails should be. And if you get a little sloppy with the glue, just take a corner of anything, smooth it out, wipe it off. Okay, so those are on. Let's go ahead and start putting these. Now there's a little arrow over here along with an L. That just says it's on the lower side of the mine shaft when it's put together. And it has an arrow to indicate where the entrance is for it. It may or may not, can't remember if this thing's completely symmetrical, but it'll help you put it together to just follow that. So we'll put a little bit of glue on this, put it on this side. We'll turn it over and set it here for a moment, and I'll do the same thing for these. Okay, so then just set it into one side. And then set this one in the same way, making sure that arrow is pointing that way towards the entrance to the mine. Alright, stand it up and hook it into this side. So that's all there is to that. Clean up a little bit of the glue along the edges. We'll go ahead and put the top pieces on. So again, this one has a U on it and an arrow. That means it's on the upper surface of the mine shaft and that way is the entrance. And then we'll go ahead and put the lower one in. So this one has a little L with an arrow right here. Again, it's the lower edge or the lower part of the surface, and arrow pointing that way saying that's where the entrance is for it. And because of the way this one's shaped, and we'll go ahead and put it on the back side of the tabs too. Can't see that, can you? So you can see I put the glue in between the tabs and on the back sides of the tabs. Because what we'll do is put it right down here. I'll push that together. Now at this stage, if you want, you can leave this unglued. This one has a U and an arrow saying go that way. The only reason to do that is if you want to put some lights or something inside of it, but here you can see how the entrance of it is. So right now I'm leaving this upper section unglued because I may try to put some lights into it later. It fits in there pretty snugly. Everything here is going to hold it together. Now we just put the outside sections onto it, and this is just trim that cleverly hides some of the tabs that are holding it together and just make it a much more interesting piece. So this will go onto there, and this will go onto here. Where'd you go? There you are. And then the same thing on the other side. And then we have this long piece that runs down the spine of it. So I'm just going to glue those on, and I'm going to glue this such that it is glued to this section that's removable and not to this section until I get to the point where I'm ready to remove it. So let's go ahead and do these. Let's go put glue on the inside. Not very much. You don't need a whole lot in any given area. It's just going to squeeze out if you put too much in. And this thing has so much surface area on it, it's going to hold just fine. And then when you put it on, you just want to make sure it aligns with the surface real nicely and aligns with this edge real nicely. And realize that when you squeeze it together a little bit, it may shift, so be sure to double check it. And I'll take this one and do the same thing. And that one fits right here, the exact same way. These slats line up on it. It should line up with the back edge. And it should line up with that surface. Actually, I believe I like it this way. Is that correct? This is made so that these cross sections line up with these sections on the side. This top part is left open because the control platform will go up there, and this keeps it from interfering with it. I am gluing it for up to this section, so the first 4 slats I'm going to leave unglued. I'm not going to put it down the length of it. There's nothing wrong if you don't want to deal with like maybe putting lights in it at some point or anything else. Just go ahead and glue it all together. Just run it along the sides. Same thing for installing that. Okay, and that's it. Your mine shaft is complete. It's got these slots here that are going to interface with the mine platform, and let's go ahead and do the mine platform next. So these are the pieces for the platform. You have the structural stuff down here, and then the sort of trim and ornamental stuff up around it. All of these little pieces go onto the sides of the walls, and then these rail pieces go into the marked tracks there. They will stick out a bit. This is a bit longer than the edge of that. And that's okay. It's supposed to do that so that it interfaces better with the mine shaft section. So we'll go ahead and put the platform together and then do the trim. So this is the base. This is the top of the platform. These are the walls. These are the supports that go into the walls. There's a lot of different ways of putting this together, but I think the easiest is to get the supports onto the walls, put everything onto this, and then fit all of it onto the platform. So these wall sections are made so that these little supports hook into the top part, the hook, and then this bottom little piece slips into the hole at the bottom of them. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the inside of this. Make sure I get into the corners at the feet. And then put it onto the walls like so. Again, they should fit in pretty snugly because they are helping hold the whole thing together. Okay, so there's the first wall section. We'll go ahead and do the other 4 real fast, and then we'll put the whole section together. Okay, so there's all 4 of the wall sections done. Let's go ahead and put it onto the platform. So essentially we're assembling this upside down. And what I'm going to do is put a little bit of glue into each of these slots and then put the walls in. You notice that one of these doesn't have as many supports. That's because that's the part that interfaces with the mine shaft. The thing I like to do when I'm doing these is get a little bit of glue on the tip and then just sort of scrape it off into the slot. That gets a nice bead of glue right where it needs to be, but not so much glue that it makes a ginormous mess. Usually. And you'll also notice I'm doing it on the back side, so any excess glue is going to be underneath of it and no one's ever going to see it. Alright, so I've gotten it into all 4 of those sections. Now I'm just going to put the walls on. So we'll start here, upside down, just slide it in like so. Should not put up too much of a fight. Okay, we'll do the next one. Oh, and there are also tabs here. I guess I should put some glue into that. Just it doesn't actually need it. It really doesn't actually need it, but I'll put a little bit there anyway. A little extra support ain't gonna hurt nobody. Alright, then we have a base. All of that is where it should be. Alright, and now we go ahead and glue it onto this piece. Now, this, you'll know, has an asymmetric side to it. We'll flip it over so that, we'll flip it over on this side. All of these tabs will easily fit into those spaces, so all you've got to do is put a little glue on this underside and everything should be good. And if you want, you can even put them on the inside of these tabs. I wouldn't put it on the outside because it's just going to get scraped off and leave a glue line. Okay, now we're ready to assemble. Flip it over, and everything should line up pretty easily. If it doesn't, it probably won't take much to make it. That's all in. This side's giving me just a little bit of grief. Turn it around over here. That's why. It's just this sticking out. For some reason there's putting up a lot of resistance. It's just some little piece that's wiggled a little bit out. So you can probably just push them in and that'll take care of it. Okay, so that's the main platform. Now we do the trim. Let's go ahead and start off with the rails. Notice it has a channel outlined for it. You don't need it on the very ends. So we'll take it off the very ends because that's not going to be engaged with anything. Alright. May give you a little bit of resistance. It may be wanting to do its own thing just because of internal stresses. But you'll know it when it's right. Now these ends should stick out a little bit because it's going to interface with a piece coming up this way, and then the upper part above that is going to need to be sticking out a little bit more. Now we've got two door sections. I like to put those in the front, here and here. Sorry, here and here. You can put it wherever you want, but those are where I want. The only places you can't put them are here and here, because that's where the crane's going to go, and this trim matches where that crane will be. And then these fit perfectly in between those. That might be crooked, I can't tell from this angle. And these go on the corner edges, like so. And you just got to do a little bit of careful alignment job to make that happen. So, just going to glue all of these on. These have the little nubs that I use to signify a little power source or storage area or capacitor area. I'm going to glue those on before I go any further. Every once in a while you run into one that just wants to fight a little bit. You will win. Alright, that is all of those. So let's go and put them on now. So put some glue on the back, like so. And then these just fit into that wide area all the way to the bottom. We'll go right in between those two supports. That's pretty easy, right? And we'll go ahead and do the doors. Alright, and we'll put these pieces in. These do require a little bit of alignment. Again, they will fit in pretty snugly. It's just a matter of making sure that they're aligned right top to bottom. Again, the glue will set up into this MDF very quickly, so you don't want to glue a bunch of them and then try to come back to straighten everything because they will be set. So just do them one at a time, get them aligned, and then move on. Just go ahead and align them with the edges. Okay, then on the last side, we have these pieces that are incomplete, and they just fit on those sections, and then these, of course, fit back on the outside edges. Then there's that extra few pieces just in case you mess up or you decide you don't want doors on it. Okay, you'll notice that the edge of this lines up with that slot. That is where the mine shaft is going to interface again. Okay, so that is it. This is all together. Now the only thing left are the cranes on the sides. Let's go ahead and show how it interfaces with the mine shaft. So now we'll just align this. It should go together pretty easily. Sometimes you might have to force it a little bit the first time, just to clean off that interface. But okay, so the next piece is the control platform on top. We'll make that as a separate piece. That will actually slip on and off very easily. And let's go with that. Okay, now for the control platform. The control platform has a platform, it has some supports, it has railings. It has two different kinds of supports for the railings, and then more supports are found on these. And then there is a stairway, and then there are two ladders and pieces to hold the ladders. And these little pieces are control panels, and they'll fit on top of this in a way you'll see in just a moment. Okay, so now we're going to assemble the platform, and the platform has these braces, this platform for the platform, a bunch of railing pieces, a few extra supports for the railing, and then a couple of control panels that'll fit onto these pieces. So let's go ahead and start putting this together. What we're going to do is we're going to put the rails onto these railing pieces. Now I use this concept for railing pieces throughout the set of terrain. So these just slip down into it like so, like so. So we're just going to go ahead and glue them together first. The rails do have a fatter section that's at the bottom, and that interfaces with the edges of the platforms. Again, you'll see this throughout this whole terrain set. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of glue while my dog barks at strangers outside into the little notches that have been cut into this. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to insert this on. And then I'm going to take another piece and I'm going to insert it on. And the only thing you want to make sure of is that when you are doing this, that all of these little triangular pieces come up on the same side. And then the third piece, we'll do the same thing. These don't require very much force. If it is requiring force, it's because something isn't aligned right, and you just need to wiggle it to figure out why. Okay, so those are those four pieces gone into their rails. So now I'm going to take the second rail, that size, and I'm going to put it on the other side. So exact same deal. All right, and then the fatter side is going down, and I'm going to essentially do all of them at once here. If I can get the notches lined up while looking at it backwards and upside down. It promises. There. We'll hold it up like this. Actually can stand there. Getting glue is a mess. And actually everything is already just sort of fallen into place. Alright, almost everything. So I'm just putting a little pressure on the bases of these, using my thumbs to put pressure on the top of this, and now all of them have gone where they need to be. So now these are the supports that the platform will fit in. What is important here is that these are the front. These little triangular pieces. This has the notches on these side sections in the front. So this aligns this way, not that way. So you definitely want to think about it. You want to get it lined up before you put any glue onto it, and this will slip together very easily. So I'm going to do the exact same thing as before. I'm going to put a little bit of glue into each of the little notches that is cut, and I'll probably put a little bit of glue in lines between those notches, just so it can interface. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put it right on these. Okay. So, glue on this, glue on this. This is the front. This is the front. That's the front. I'm going to slide this up underneath of it until it engages into there. It should be very easy to get that to happen now because these are holding everything, the railings are holding everything at the exact distance they need to be. And it'll just slip together very easily. And you can put a little bit of pressure onto it. You don't need to put a lot of pressure onto it, but MDF is pretty strong and all of that is good. So now we're going to put the railings on. Here we have two types of supports for the railings. 4 of them look like this with the little J-notch at the bottom. 2 of them do not. The reason 2 of them do not have that J-notch is because they need to fit in here and hold the railing in a way that does not interfere with the stairway notch. So that's why those are cut just a little bit shorter than the other ones. And you just want to make sure that these railings will interface with everything right. So each of these railings, again, has a bottom side that's fatter. And then it also has one of these, tabs on it. And they're going to line up with the notches cut in the front and back railings. And then these are going to go into the side and they're supported in the middle. Alright, so exact same process. I'm going to take this one, I'm going to put a little bit of glue to that notch, maybe even a little bit in the middle, like so. I'm going to put this like so. Clean the excess glue off, because I'm using way too much today. Alright, and now that's ready to go on. And again, this is one that has the little J there, so that can't go on the front edge, it has to go on the back edge. And that will be here. So we'll put a little bit of glue into this. put a little bit of glue onto the base of the railing, and we'll put a little bit of glue onto that tab. Now, I'll just slide that into that notch. We'll align this tab into the railing notch, and it'll just squeeze together like so. Piece of cake. Do that a bunch more times. Let's go ahead and do one of them that does not have the front end, little J hook. We'll take this, put a little bit of glue on the base, put a little bit of glue on that tab, put a little bit of glue into these notches, and might as well put it along the back. Which is still way too much. I really need to fix that. Alright. That is now on. Put a little bit of glue onto here. And that will go on like so. Again, does not require any force. If for some reason you feel like it is requiring force, that means something isn't aligned. Wiggle it. Okay, doing the rest of them that way. Okay, then we'll do these end pieces exact same way, except for we'll put the glue onto this just because the other one's got a bunch of holes in it. And then the final bit is just to attach these panels. They simply go across on these, put a little glue on them. And that's it. Stairways. So stairways have two rails, either completely interchangeable. All we're going to do is put glue into those nubs, slide these on. Alright, once you got the first ones on, maybe easier just to go ahead and put the glue into the stairs. Should be a decent snug fit. You don't want to push too hard because you don't want to break these. You do need to push harder. Pick them up like this and do it so you're bracing the backs. But honestly, you don't need to do that. And you can align the stairs when you're done with all of them. Let's go ahead and get these together real fast. When you're done, flip them over, press them down. Should make sure they all get to the same alignment. And then if you need to, you can take a look at them from the front and push the whole rails forward or backwards if you need to. And then for the ladders, we'll leave this one here. I'll do that one separately. The ladders have these little clips, little G's, and all you have to do is put them on, slip them that way, and then those will slip over the railings. And that's actually very secure. That's actually very secure that way. What I usually do is put 2 clips on top so it looks like little handrails. Slide them both down, and that's pretty good, right? So I like to glue these things onto the ladders so I can remove them to make them easy to store, but then I don't have to fiddle with them so much to put them back on. So let's go ahead and do that. So all I'm going to do is put a drop of glue into that little bottom part there. Put it onto the front of that. Then I'll go ahead and elevate it so that this is the same height as that. Do it with the other one. Move them out to the edges and just let them dry that way. I'll go ahead and do the other ladder while I'm here. Okay, now we have all of the pieces assembled except for the crane, and I will show you the crane in a minute, but let me go through this part first because the crane is by far the complicated piece in this. So this has these little hooks. They slip in right in the front there. Just make sure it's aligned. And then it gets supported by these feet in the back. And that isn't going anywhere. You can take it apart if you need to. Carefully. If you want to store it. I usually leave this stuff loose because I don't have a good transportation system for them yet. That'll come later. But let's go ahead and hook up the ladders. Now, because this piece is no longer interfering, this should slip in right under it. Again, you can glue this. There's no reason you can't. I just leave it loose because it's easier for storage for me. Do the same thing on the other side. If something is fighting you, it just means it's not aligned right. Wiggle it a little bit, don't force it. Alright. And then ladders. The ladders go on this side. Just slip them right on over top of the rails. And there. You are 75% of the way done. Because, yeah, the cranes take a little bit of work. Alright, let's get things together and do the cranes. Okay, so here you can see a completed cart lift, and here you can see all the parts that make up that completed cart lift. I'm just going to show up front the most important features of it. This cart is completely flexible, the cart lifter. these move, these can rotate, and that lets you move this thing just like it really worked. So it can pick up carts, it can move them over, it can flip them, it can bring them back, set them down on the tracks nicely. In order for that to happen, all of these joints that are in between the pieces, the big pieces, have a little tiny piece, so small it may not even be showing up here, and that is going to fit into all of these. That is the key joint that allows everything to rotate. So these will fit around all these little rods that are around, and that will be the interface that turns. The rod will also go through this and this to act as washers, and also as to act as just covers to make it look a little nicer on the outside. Let's see here how those all work. But that is the most important joint that you don't want to glue. You do not want to get glue in a way that seals these pieces to these pieces. If you do get some glue on it, it's not a big deal. Just keep moving the piece until the glue dries enough that it isn't going to bond it permanently. All of these edges on the inside are full of char from the laser cutter, and they will release their char into the glue. They'll help dry it out, and they'll weaken it. So just keep moving it, let it grind a little bit of that char into it, let it dry out while it's still moving, and it won't bond. Let's see. These are just trim pieces. You've seen those before for things that act as like capacitors or power storage, and they'll just fit into this. These go on either, well, this goes in the middle of these two pieces, and it's just ornamentation. They fit into these two side pieces that form the base of the lifters. And with that, I think that's everything that's important. Up here you can see these little hexagons will interface with the hexagons that will be on the front and backs of the carts, and that is how it grabs them to lift them. Okay, let me put this back up and we'll start assembling. It's really not that hard. In fact, it kind of goes together logically, and it's just they're really fiddly bits. I've given you extra of these to make sure that, you know, if they roll off the table, a cat plays with them, whatever. You should have some extras to waste. I know I do. Okay, be right back with you. Okay, let's do the easiest thing first, and that is putting these in. One of them is longer, two of them are longer than the others. They run up the length of this, where the raised part is. So just go put a little glue, maybe a little bit on the edge, and plop it down. So with that together, this is going to go onto that. And this is going to go behind them. They should be flat on the top, but with this part raised afterwards. So that all gets aligned by these pieces, and these tabs will fit into those pieces in only one way. I've not decided if making it that way was useful or not, but that's what I did. So we'll put a little bit of glue just on the back of this. Doesn't need to go all the way down because this doesn't go all the way down. And it's getting mostly aligned. These slots should also align when it's all said and done. And we'll do the same thing here. Okay. Now I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the notches here, a little bit of glue on the notches here. And I'm going to put this on. It's wrong side. So you do see the different shapes on it. That'll make sure that you put these on in the right way. So, get the right one. That one's in. That one's in. That one's in. And that one's in. This middle one's not in. There we go. Now, before you put the other one of these on, before you glue it on anyway, you're going to want to get a little bit of the other parts together. So I'm going to put this on, but I'm not going to glue it because I'm going to need to take it apart here in a second, but I do want it to stick together in a lined up way. Okay, so now we're going to take this, we're going to put a washer piece so it fits in there. And we'll take one of these so it fits in there. We'll do the same thing on the other side. And then that is going to fit into these two pieces. So these little pieces are going to fit in to the holes on those pieces. So that's why you can't glue this thing together completely first. Alright, we'll take this off again. And we'll put just a little bit of glue on this. Again, I'm going to be very careful to not glue the whole thing together. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue just down on the bottom edge of these. And I'm going to put this washer piece on. I'm going to put this washer piece on. And I'm going to put just the tiniest bit of glue down again. And I'm going to put these little tiny fairing pieces. Not even the right words, but they're words. I'm sure they mean something. Alright. And I'm going to see there's a little bit of glue sticking out on the side here, so I'm just going to take a piece of something and clean that off. Checking this one. It's got a little bit on the bottom there. And I'll do that there again. Alright. Now we're ready to assemble. So I will take this and I will slide it into there. And then I will take this piece and I'll put a little bit of glue onto the base piece notches, just like before. And I will slide this back on. Hopefully it'll be quite easy because it's already been there once. And I will align it so that this goes into that hole. Into that hole. Alright. And that is the first tricky part. You can see now that this is free to move. If I had any concern about it getting any glue on it, I would just do this for about a minute. Now, you could leave it like this, but I find it better to go ahead and glue the outside pieces on. They just help it stay where everything's supposed to be. And also gives it a slightly better look. So very little bit of glue on the tip of that, just the tiniest amount. See that? Already trying to lose one. And I'll put that on. And again, this is going to rotate with this piece. So if you got any glue that you think might have gotten in between them, just go ahead and do this for a little bit. The other way you can do it is to put it into the hole. And then when you go to put it onto the peg, you'll just push the glue through and very little will come out the other side. And very little will come out into that joint where you don't want it. Alright, that is the first one done. And that is the trickiest part of it. It's just making sure that you leave one of these legs unglued so that you can get this piece to insert through the holes of the lower piece, of the base piece. So now we'll do the second piece. These will interface with these slots, but it's easier to do that after the fact. So what we're going to do is take this, and again we're going to put a little bit of glue just on the bottom edge, just on the bottom edge. We'll take a washer piece, I say washer because that's sort of what it's acting like. I'll put a little bit more glue on, put more glue on, put on the bearing piece, which is the little tiny one. We'll clean it off just a little bit. Okay, that's all ready to go. So I'm going to take these, put the first one there, the second one there. Actually, before we do that, let's go and glue them. So these are going to fit onto those. Let's just put a little bit of glue into the notch, down the length of it, as I get messier and messier. Just go set it across these pieces for the moment. These probably don't need to be secured that well, but I'm doing it anyway. Alright, so with a little bit of glue on those, put that one on, put this one on, line them up with these. said, it's not difficult, it's just fiddly. But the nice thing is that once they're together, it's actually really secure. So you can see this is already where it needs to be. This one's moving, that one's moving. And actually the gap between these is holding this quite tight. So again, I don't need the nut on the outside, I just think it looks better. Take another one of these little washer pieces, put a little glue inside the hole. Pretty neat, right? Then we do the third one. Alright, third one. Exact same way. A little bit of glue in these corners. Put on the washer piece. Touch more glue. Or maybe a little too much glue, because that seems to be my thing today. Put in the bearing piece. Alright. Get a little bit of glue onto these arms, remembering which is which. Which is easier now since I don't have a unglued one to pick up. Put them onto it. Bam. Bam. Line them up. All right. And then glue the outside ferrules. Okay, so now this is all together, and what we're going to do is attach these onto that with this little bearing in the middle, and we are going to use these little very tiny scrap pieces. You'll probably think they're waste, but they're not. In any other circumstance they would be, but right here they are actually axles. So I'm going to take one, we'll put a little bit of glue onto it, and I'm going to put it into this. And you'll note that I kept that little pattern area facing outward. We'll put a nut over it anyway, but just want to show you that. Now I'm going to put a little bearing piece onto it. It's like we've done with all of these. And then I'm going to insert that upwards through there. Don't fall off. Oh, it fell off. Come on, get on there. Alright. Then we're going to put a little bit of glue into the hole of this. And we're going to put that onto the axle. We're going to try to put that onto the axle. There we go. We want to make sure that it is aligned with the first piece. And it is, so yay. Then we're going to take this little piece, and it's going to go on to hold those other two pieces together. So we're just going to put a little bit of glue into the notches. and slide that on. Like so. Alright, and then we can go ahead and put on these. Now we gotta do it for the other side. I need to get a couple more of these little bits. Okay. Exact same deal. Getting close to done. All right. That is a fierce dog. So, each of these has a piece with a short end and a piece with a long end. The piece with the short end interfaces with the hexagon. The piece with the long end gets another little bearing, and it'll go into these. So let me get a couple little more bearings out. And here we go. So first I'm going to put these pieces together. We'll glue in the notch. Bam. That's all there is to that. Then I'm going to put a little glue into the hole of this hexagon. I'm going to stand this up on it, like so. And while I'm here, I'll go ahead and put a little glue on the notch of the center post, and I'll put a bearing onto it. All right. Everything is as it should be. Let's go ahead and do the other one. Okay, we are almost done. There is only 2 last things to do. Well, 4 last things to do because we're doing them twice. Take this. We're going to insert the bearing through that hole. We're going to take one of these washer/nut pieces, put a little glue onto them, into the hole. We'll drop it because it's tiny and my hands are way too big for this nonsense. And we'll simply try very hard. There we go. To get this to fit on. And squeeze it like that. We'll make sure it rotates. Sorry, make sure it rotates. Same as 2. And I'll just tell you right now, it's best just to leave it alone just a little bit. Go ahead and wait for that glue to set. But I'll go ahead and do the other one because, you know, it's a video and all. So we'll take this, we'll put a little bit of glue in there. Or in this case, a lot of glue in there. I'm going to insert the washer into that arm. I'm going to put this thing to work as a nut on the other side of it. There we go. I'm going to make sure both of them are nice and tight there. I'm going to make sure this one's free to rotate. I'm going to make sure it's real tight again. Make sure this one's free to rotate. Make sure it's real tight again. Alright, now I'm just going to leave those to dry. Alright, that's all there is to it. It's a lot of little fiddly bits. Got to take a little care with the glue, but it does go all together. And in the end, you get something that's pretty cool. Okay, so each of these mines comes with 2 ore transfer carts. So what we have are the sides of the carts, the bottom of the cart, and the 2 side bottoms that angle up. And then this will go onto the top that way. And then these go onto the bottom so that there's doors on both sides. And then this has a little bit of that anti-grav stuff, or maybe it's just bolts if it's a low-tech one. And then these pieces are just trimmed to help hide the assembly points. These little pieces go into sections of the trim, and they're just the sort of standard power cell looking pieces that I use on a bunch of this terrain. Alright, so let's go ahead and start assembling. First, let's start putting these together. So I will put a little bit of glue in between these tabs, a bit of glue on the other side. And we want this side with the door opening, the door seal up. And they just fit into those holes. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing with these pieces. A little bit of glue in between. A bit of glue in between. You can also put a little bit on the tabs if you feel inclined. It's not really necessary. Can also just be a little bit more messy. So we'll just slip that in to the angle this way. Second piece, do it the same way. So there's those. That's all you need to hold the main part of this together. So we will go ahead and put this piece on top. And just have to wiggle things around. It's usually best to start on one side. Get the tabs aligned, move it on to the next piece, get the tabs aligned, move it on to the next piece, get the tabs aligned. You can also angle it a little bit if that makes it easier for you. Okay, and that's it. This is now a nice, well held together piece. We'll clean the glue off with the edge of something. It's a little bit messy. Actually, it really isn't that important for the inside of this because I'll probably fill it up with something. Alright. Well, the other pieces. Maybe you guys were clever enough to realize I'd been missing the sides. Those are the sides. Or the ends. So these also go on the same kind of way. A little bit of glue on the tabs. A little bit of glue in between. And we'll just slip that one on like so. And yeah, I make my tolerances a little bit tight, so it sometimes it'll snap together with a nice convincing "I'm supposed to be here" sound. And I'll do the same thing here. Alright, and again, clean up the glue. And now start decorating. So on the inside of that, hopefully you can see, platform looks a little awkward, and so that's what this piece is for. This helps fill that in. Just put a little bit of glue on the side of it and just drop it into place. Hopefully it lands the way you want it to, and now it's in there like so. And it makes the floor of it look much more even. Now the rest of this just goes around the outside. So let's start with the underside of it. Now there's these 4 corners that are cut through. Those are so you can more easily align this piece. So this piece, it is not square. There is a direction it's supposed to go, and that direction is that the line for the door should go across the cart, just like it is on that side. That side. So glue that on. We'll take this piece and glue it on. Now this is designed to fit around the opening on the cyclotronic refinery. So if you do plan on using one of those and having the carts be able to fit around that opening, this needs to be fairly close to accurate. There's there's a decent amount of space for play, but you definitely don't want it to be all the way to one side or anything like that. If you're not using the refinery, this probably doesn't make that much difference unless you want to flip it over or put it on its side for some reason. Alright, and then you have the feet. So the first thing that goes on are these little squares, and they'll go into each of these corners. That's defined by the edges here. So we'll go ahead and glue those. Put a little drop of glue in each corner. They don't have to line up perfectly square since they are propulsion units and they might need to change direction. If they're a little bit off kilter, that just looks like they were changing direction. And so with those in, we can put these pieces, the feet, or the propulsion units, in on top of them. So I'm just going to put a little glue into each corner and onto the piece. And make sure there's a little bit in the center. Actually, I don't need to make sure there's any in the center. It's just going to spread out just fine. Okay, so this one goes there, and this one goes there, and this one goes here, and this one goes here. Yep, and that's dogs. And the bottom side is done. Now, these pieces have been designed so they cover up all these little tabs that are around it. And then these pieces fit into the insides, the end pieces here. So I think it's generally easier to do it after it's in place. So let's go ahead and put these on. These will line up to cover up the tabbed ends, and just like everything else, we'll put a little bit of glue on it and just let it adhere to the surface of the sides. Now unfortunately these will not quite reach. Just like so. And you can look at them and make sure everything's aligned the way it's supposed to be, and that you're indeed covering up the edges of the tabs. And that is level when you look at it from the side. Alright, and then we'll do it on the same thing on this side. That's pretty good. And then you'll notice there's these slots here on the side. Those are also to allow this to interface with the cyclotronic building better. Just so you understand. That alignment only matters if it's going to sit on top of the cyclotronic building. The refinery. Alright, so then we do the sides. Same deal. This one has the advantage that it will rest on the bottom. Again, look at it from the side. Make sure it's lining up. You'll notice the corners on these should line up. They don't cover each other though. They only cover to the edge of the carts. And that's okay. I'll just go ahead and do this real fast so you can see that too. So these come in two shapes. One of them has little hooks on the side, on both sides. The other one, the tab extends to the top. The ones that the tab extends to the top go on the outside edges. And then these go on the inside edges. Or the inside edges. The inside of it. So there's 6 of them on each. I'll go ahead and glue those down. And let's put some glue on the back of it. And go ahead and attach it to the side. And align it. Okay, I can go ahead and put these onto this side since I didn't do that one to start with. I think it's probably easier to do it before you put it on, before you put the end decoration on, but it probably isn't enough of a difference to matter. It's just, it'll help you keep from moving it around if the glue isn't really quite dry yet. Okay, final thing to assemble is the little cart pieces. So let's do it. Each cart has these 2 little guides for the rails. A bottom piece, 2 end pieces, 2 side pieces, 2 bits of trim for the front and the back. These will also be what interfaces with the cart lifters. Alright, so this is very straightforward. If you've made it this far, you probably already know everything that's coming. So let's go ahead and put these rail guides on first. A little bit of glue, a little bit of glue, a little bit on the face, on that tab. That's the first one down. Same deal with the second one. A little bit of glue, a little bit of glue, a little bit of glue. Into that notch. The whole thing over. Alright, step one is done. Now we'll put on these sides, put a little bit of glue onto the edges there, put a little bit of glue into the notch. And we'll go and do it for the front edge or back edge, depending. Same deal. Glue there, glue in the notch, glue in the other notches. Medium little glue on the sides there. Alright, so that looks like that. And just stick it onto the cart. And I just hit all that, but you can see what happens. Go ahead and put on the third side. And put on the fourth side. Alright, that's all four of those. You can see we still have tabs that are sticking out. That is what these little pieces will hang on. So we'll go ahead and put a little glue onto them. Just on the flats. Maybe a little bit on the end notch, just because. That fits on, and that's the end of that. And we'll do it on the other side. Okay, push everything together nice and tight. See if there's any glue sticking out anywhere you don't want it. And that's done. And there'll be 3 of those with each one of them. Alright, and that is everything that should be glued together. So the carts easily fit on these rails. They should even move around on it alright. And then you have your cart lifters, and they have these 2 little slots on the front. They interface with the 2 little slots on the side. And with the edge of the platform. And you can get them on there pretty tight so that they don't come back off, or you can leave them so you can take them off again. As everything else, well, not everything else, but sort of your choice if you want to leave them removable or not. And we'll do the same thing on this side. And there they are. So, you have a cart on the track, you can come down, rotate your hexagons around until they fit in there. You can leave them like that. Troops can actually walk underneath of it. You can have them lift up, like so. Where did I put the carts? Oh, there we go. If you put the hoppers on the side, you can go ahead and move these over, make it look like they're about to dump. Or you can even flip them over. And of course, there's a gazillion different things you could put into the carts to make them look like they're full of whatever's in this mine. If you come up with anything particularly cool, please tell me about it. I am probably going to get some little mica chips, which are nice and shiny and metallic, and put them into it, which is not really what ore looks like, but so what? This is a sci-fi. Of course ore looks shiny. Alright, that is everything there is to a mine entrance, and that's probably the most complicated piece that I make right now. It really doesn't go together difficultly. It's just there's a lot of pieces, and some of them are a little fiddly, especially for these cranes. But then everyone is going to ooh and ah over your cart lifters still being mobile. So that's worth something, right? All right, well, thank you very much. Enjoy.